people who say I can't have my properties leveraged because it's too risky if the banks recall the loans and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's like that's your reason for not getting into real estate is you don't want to have loans or leveraging debt. And it's one of those misconceptions that debt is bad. But even
Right.
they
Let's talk
know,
about that. Let's
yeah,
talk about that and other misconceptions in real estate in this episode, Ryan.
let's do
For
it.
you guys tuning in, my name's David, and this is Ryan. We started this podcast to help you guys quit your 9 to 5 and replace your income so you don't have to be beholden to whatever your boss says, whatever they determine you should be paid. If you're underpaid, you can take full control of what you earn. We do that with a business case called wholesaling real estate, where you find a distressed property and you also get paid for finding it by passing it to an investor like Ryan or myself who buy it cash. You could make a $10,000 finder's fee. We also cover the BRRRR strategy, which is finding a property that's distressed and fixing it up and refinancing it so you get all your money back out because you've created so much value in that property that it's now worth 3 times more than what you paid for it. And so that's a strategy that you can use to build your rental portfolio. So we're going to talk about that. And if you guys are on this path, you might have people ask you, well, hey, did you think about this in real estate? So this episode is to equip you guys with the answers or a perspective from somebody who's done the business. And that was something I dealt with whenever I was I said a kid, but I was 25 when I was interested in real estate. My parents had serious concerns. They were talking to people at their church who had inherited a property and had not really any experience and didn't manage it well, had a bad experience, right? The tenant tore it up. But I knew it was right because I was going and talking with people who have 100 rental properties. So I knew it could be possible. And that's the difference. And so, Ryan, you have how many rental properties now? 60?
62.
62, right? And he's done also 425 deals on the wholesaling side. So he's doing both of these business models. And so it sounds like one of the recent concerns you spoke with somebody about was leveraging your property is risky because then the banks could call all those loans due, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Their concern.
That's very weird.
It is.
Because, well, that doesn't prevent people from buying a house, right? With a loan, similar type of loan.
Yeah, I don't know what I should have in the moment I should have, dove in a little bit more and asked like why do you think that? Like what makes you think that that's a concern? And I mean, we always as entrepreneurs we probably overanalyze concerns or overanalyze what possible things could go wrong. I think that's probably something most of us think about. But we also have to take risks to make things to see if things work. And so the idea of like, well, I get it. I get the concept of leveraging and having loans on your, but it's just too risky. And I should have just asked why he thought that.
Yeah. Well, it kind of reminds me of in Rich Dad Poor Dad, he talks about good debt and bad debt.
Yes.
So good debt would be, hey, I'm going to go borrow money to buy this rental property, and it's going to cost $1,000 a month for the privilege of borrowing that money. But my rental property will generate $1,500 a month, right? So that's good debt because you use it to buy an asset that generates more revenue than the debt service on it. Bad debt would be, buying a boat or financing a vacation,
Right.
or credit card debt in general, where you're using that to buy a lot of things you need to live, but those things aren't generating revenue, right? So that's the difference between good debt and bad debt. And sometimes I think some people think all debt is bad.
Right. What's another example of I have one, but I'm asking you, what's
I
another
got a whole
example?
list.
Okay. What's another example of a bad purchase that would be considered bad debt? That it's probably common in the real estate world.
Okay. I would say a house that doesn't cash flow, a house that cash flows negative,
You
could
nailed
be
it.
problematic because why would you buy that deal? maybe you think it'll appreciate, but it puts you at risk because it's draining your bank account every month while you're waiting for something to happen. So
Yep.
I don't like that. I wouldn't do that type of deal.
Vacation homes. Unless you are gonna like put that vacation home on like Airbnb, or you're gonna do short term, having a vacation home is like a terrible investment because it does exactly the same thing as what you just said. And negative, it's negative cash flow. You're spending money to have a vacation home that you can go and enjoy, which is great, but it's also taking money from you every single month and bringing you nothing in return.
Yeah, I was always confused about the vacation home and why there's such an allure to that. There really
Yeah.
is though. But I would put it in the bucket of you could spend whatever you want in your primary house. You could spend whatever you want in your vacation house, but it's an expense, not an investment.
Yes.
And if you could afford it because your business makes so much money, then that's cool. I still don't get why you'd want to do it though, because when I go on vacation, I want to relax. I want to be served.
Yes.
So why don't I just go spend a whole lot on a really nice hotel or really nice Airbnb, and then be served in
Yeah.
those scenarios and then leave vacation and never think about it again. If you have a vacation home, you're the one who's got to deal with the maintenance when you're not on vacation, or you're spending your vacation maintaining your house, or you have to pay for the upkeep when it's not generating any revenue. It just seems like when I'm on vacation, I don't want to be in my thing that I'm doing maintenance on and having to work, you know? So I just never got the allure of that
Yeah.
vacation home, owning that. And then you could say, oh, well, I'll Airbnb it out. But well, now it's just like not even yours because there's strangers in it like 90% of the year. So, like, why did you really want the vacation home anyway? It's like
Yeah.
you probably wanted it to feel like yours, right? But now it's set up so people are in and out of there all the time. So how could that feel like yours? I don't get it. Here's another one though: market volatility and risk. So,
Hmm.
and I want to pull this up because I reference this a lot. The Federal Reserve has these graphs on home prices and rent, actually. So I want to actually pull it up because I talk about it all the time. Home price index. Look at that. All right. So they have 70 years of data here, and we are only looking back to 87. Oh, I guess that's as far back as they go. All right. So, yeah, from 87 to now, um, the National Home Price Index. So, overall, it's always going up. There are some years where it does have a dip. Overall trend
Hmm.
is always up. So, when you're talking about dips and you hear these bad stories of things that happened in 2008, those are typically in cities like San Diego and Phoenix and Austin, Texas, that probably appreciated too fast because everybody was like moving there, right?
Hmm.
So it's like you get the biggest volatility in the cities that have the biggest appreciation, but in Kansas City, St. Joe, Indianapolis, St. Louis, all these Midwest cities, those things tick up like a bond. Here's the rent one. You know, it's like slow at first, and then it's like getting faster and faster every single year. Yeah. So, so volatility. Yeah. So here's how to avoid the danger of volatility. Like you get in trouble when you decide to buy a house that you intend to flip 6 months later in a market with high appreciation, like in the state of Florida, in San Diego, in Phoenix, etc. Let's say you buy a bunch of those, you expect to sell them for 500,000. The market takes a huge dip, and now they're only worth 350 before you finish them. So you're stuck with these assets that you can't make money on because the market just collapsed, right? So that's the type of issue that will get you in trouble with volatility. But if you're buying long-term rental properties or doing the BRRRR strategy, for example, then you're not exposed to that because the prices in the Midwest market, they don't fluctuate up and down so crazily like that. And also the rent, you're putting a BRRRR deal on like a 30-year mortgage, right? So it's a fixed rate mortgage. That means once you lock in the payment, it's solid. So if you notice, that payment will never change for 30 years. But what does the rent do in 30 years? So rent was 140 on the index here. And then 30 years later, it was 182. And then, I'm sorry, 10 years later. And then 10 years later, it was 149. And then 10 years later, it was 341. Right. So like it's just increasing at a faster and faster rate. So your payment stays the same, the rent drastically increases. And so it just becomes a better deal the longer you hold it. And then again, on the 30-year time frame, since it's a fixed rate deal, the price is, it looks like 160 over, 30 years is a long time. 2000 to, it was 99 on the index, and now it's 325 on the index. So that was over 24 years. And so that means, what did it, 3X? It 3X in 30 years. Are you following?
Yep.
The price. Yeah. So these little fluctuations didn't matter because you were still renting it at a higher and higher rate and you had a fixed rate mortgage. So that would be my argument against the volatility side. Now you tell me, what's another thing that people say against real estate investors, or why that would be a bad idea?
Something that I've often found as an argument against it is it's hard to find tenants.
Has that ever been true? People always need a place to live.
Yeah, people always need. There's so many reasons people rent, but I think it's a misconception that there aren't people out there that want to rent properties. I mean, there's the general, like, sometimes people have to rent because maybe they don't have good enough credit to buy at their own home. But there's also so many people out there that, because of like their lifestyle choices, and they don't want to be in one spot, that they choose to rent so that they have the freedom and flexibility to go. There's some people that want to rent because they don't want to have to deal with the maintenance and repair responsibilities of a house.
Yep.
So there's like business executives that travel around the country that want a place to rent because they know they're living in a short-term, situation.
Right.
There's people that rent because they want access to certain amenities, like, living in a bigger town or a big city in like a multi-unit complex that has a gym or has a pool or has all these extra things. There's so many different reasons that
Right.
people want to rent, that to me it's like, well, that's a misconception that you're going to have a hard time finding a tenant.
Cool. Glad you haven't had trouble with that. Hey, the other one I hear a lot is, I don't want to fix toilets at night, but I have 19 rentals. And if there's an issue with the toilet, I get a text, and then I text a plumber. So I'm not the one fixing the toilet. So that would be just the easy killer of that one.
Yeah.
You're not the one fixing the house.
Yesterday I was driving home from my office downtown, and I seen a maintenance truck parked in front of one of my rental properties. And I knew who that maintenance guy was. So I called him. I said, "Hey, what's going on over at the house on Ashland?" He's like, "Oh, there's an HVAC issue." I'm like, "Sweet. You guys got it under control." But it was cool because I had no clue that there was ever an issue with the property. I just happened to drive by and see that a maintenance truck was there on a service call taking care of something.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
again, if you have the right things set up, you won't have to take that service call. It's not your job.
Right. Well, there's 4 things that you guys might hear. I'm curious if you guys let us know in the Spotify and YouTube comments, what are other objections that you've heard and how have you handled it? And we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.